Hey, because I wanted to answer a question that was asked by one of our viewers. Gina asked us about paddle grip. Basically what's happening is that she was using a Continental grip and she was playing, and another player there, a more advanced player than her, had told her that she was popping the ball up because of the Continental grip. So what I want to do in this video is I want to talk more about the Continental grip. I want to compare it to the Western grip. I want to show you some clips of players and the types of grips they use and the effects of those grips, and hopefully help you with your grip question. Let's get into it. If, like Gina, you have a question about pickleball, feel free to send it to us. You can either comment below is the easiest way. If not, you can send us an email. We set up an email for this. It's pickleball@intopickle.com, and I'll put that below, and I'll put it in the description as well, so you have it. But if you want to send us a question at pickleball@intopickle.com, we're happy to answer your questions. We generally recommend using the Continental grip for pickleball. The Continental grip looks like this. I'm going to hold the paddle, and I'll link to some charts below to show you exactly where you're supposed to put the V and different knuckles and things like that. But basically, you're going to hold the paddle in a way that when you hold your arm out, it is 90 degrees to the court without turning your arm. So sometimes people will hold it this way, which is what we're going to talk about in a second, the Western grip, and then when I ask them to hold it out, they'll turn their arm like this. That doesn't count. So basically, you hold the paddle, you bring it out in front of you, and it's going to be 90 degrees to the court. That's the Continental grip. The Continental grip offers several advantages. First of all, it allows you to play both forehand and backhand evenly. So because I'm holding it 90 degrees, if I turn the paddle this way or turn the paddle this way, I don't have any any angle changes in the paddle. So this way and this way is basically almost the same angle, you know, when I rotate my arm one way or the other way. If I start using a Western grip like this, so that's an extreme, that's a real Western grip, and then this is a semi-Western grip. So let's go to the Western grip. The Western grip, you can see when I turn to the backhand side, this is my paddle angle. When I turn to the forehand side, this is my paddle angle. So basically it's not straight down, but it's down and up. So basically, obviously, it's the inverse of the other. If I go semi-Western like this, then it's not quite as pronounced, but you can still see that the angle changes. When I go back to Continental grip, it's basically open and open. Okay, so the angle on either side on a Continental grip is going to be the same or very similar, whereas if you go to a Western grip, it's going to be vastly different.
In this sequence, you're going to see how easy it is for Paul Olin, who's hitting these dinks, to basically open up for the forehand here. It's a nice open forehand, and then on the backhand, same thing. You can reach across really nicely and simply with a Continental grip.
This is important for several reasons, and it's different on each side. Let's look at the forehand side first. With a Western grip on the forehand side, as I showed you earlier, basically my paddle angle is going to be closed like this. So that requires me to either I have to turn my arm like this to drive through that ball. The reason this is done in tennis is because tennis players are basically hitting up and around like this. Pickleball, usually you want to hit through the ball, not up on the ball, because of the mechanics of it. We're not going to get into all the mechanics about strings and things like that, but tennis players hit kind of an upward, more of an upward kind of a brushing stroke, whereas pickleball players hit more through the ball. So if you're going to hit a pickleball stroke with this grip, you're going to have to come at it and basically come through the ball like this, but you're going to have to turn your elbow and your wrist up so that you can bring the paddle into position. If you were to hit the ball like this, so if you just come straight like this on the ball, you can see that the ball is going to go straight down, and it's not going to clear the net. So that's one of the difficulties with a forehand, is having to turn it like this. It's particularly difficult when you're up at the NVZ dinking. So if I'm up at the NVZ dinking and I'm reaching down to dink, right? What happens is if I bring the paddle like this, I can't dink, so I have to turn my arm like this, or I have to try and lift that ball up. I have to brush up on it, and those types of mechanics can cause errors in the dinking game.
Here we see Riley Newman come into the picture to hit this ball. You can see when he comes into it, he's holding it with the Western grip. That's a really Western grip here. And then look how he has to bend his elbow. So he has to basically torque his elbow in order to bring that paddle up so he can hit the ball and open it, and then closes it to finish the stroke.
Let's compare that to the Continental grip. In the Continental grip, when I bring out my forehand is basically 90 degrees. Now I can open it or close it pretty easily. But if I hit the ball like this, so if I'm hitting, let's say, a serve or a return to serve like this, just a little bit open like this, I'm probably going to get it over the net, right? I can turn it a little bit like this, or I can turn it a little bit like this, whatever I want to do. I'm hitting a volley, same thing. Whereas with this grip, it's very difficult to adjust upward. Downward's awesome. So like if I get a pop-up and I have the Western grip, yeah, you can really put some power on that ball with this grip because of the way the mechanics of the arm and the wrist and the whip. But the Continental grip will allow me more versatility, particularly when I start hitting low volleys. This grip, again, on the Western grip, is going to be really difficult for me to get low volleys. I have to turn it like this. Whereas the Continental grip, all I do is put my paddle out, and I have a good paddle face to deal with the volley.
Let's compare Riley's stroke to Ben Johns. Ben Johns may not be exactly Continental grip, but it's pretty close. You can see when Ben brings a paddle back, it's basically open already. He doesn't have to turn his elbow or torque his elbow, and then he basically can come through the ball and finish the stroke.
If you like the way that we approach the game based on fundamentals and trying to get every player to be the best player they can be, check out our Into Pickle online academy. We're offering some online courses right now. We have some free workshops so you can get more information about the academy and also learn the topic that we're covering that day. Let's look at it now on the backhand side. The backhand side is the inverse, right? So the forehand side was too closed. The backhand side ends up being too open. So it's basically, pointing almost straight up on a full Western, a little bit less on a semi-Western, and then on a continental, it's basically 90 degrees. So if I'm using this kind of a grip on the backhand side, what happens is for dinking, it can work fine because, it has an open face, so I can go down, I can just dink the ball. But what happens is if I start getting balls up here, so if people start driving balls up into my rib cage area, what happens is now my paddle is too open, resulting in a pop-up. I have to find a way to turn that over. So what you'll see players that use this grip a lot of times use a second hand. For instance, we'll look at some video of Riley Newman in a minute, but you're going to see when Riley does this, you'll see that first of all he has to turn his wrist. You'll see his wrist is severely bent like this, and then he has his other hand. It's on the other side, but he has the other hand, and he uses his offhand or his non-dominant hand to push it over like this to basically get the same angle that another player can get with a continental grip in one hand like this.
Let's look again at Riley Newman and backhand side. Watch when he starts with the backhand stroke, you're going to see that his paddle is way open, so it's really open. Then he basically has to bend his wrist and bring the paddle up so that he can get the angle that he wants to hit the shot because the paddle was too open. And then when you look at the volley, you're going to see a similar thing. Basically, he basically comes at it. You're going to see that he uses his other hand, his left hand in his case, to basically force the paddle over so that he can complete the volley.
Let me show you the continental again on the backhand side. So if I have a continental grip on the backhand side, I can cover low and I can cover high. Basically, I can keep my paddle just by going like this. I get the paddle angle that I want without having to significantly bend my wrist or elbow or do anything else. It's just basically I'm ready, I go, I hit, or I hit my backhand off the ground stroke. Whatever I have to do with a continental grip, it's just a much better and more versatile grip.
Let's compare the last volley to Ben John's volley. You can see when Ben holds the paddle, it's basically straight up and down 90 degrees. And then when he goes to volley, all he has to do is put the paddle in the position he wants without bending the wrist or the elbow to get it where he needs to hit it. And then he goes to the ready position, paddle up and down, and then he switches to the forehand side, nice and simple, and can hit that dink.
The difficulties I'm pointing out, so the difficulty down here and the difficulty up here, aren't just theoretical difficulties. They're difficulties that a veteran or a knowledgeable opponent will try to exploit, will capitalize on. If I'm ever playing in a tournament or playing in a game where I'm playing with somebody who has a grip like this, I will usually try and target low balls to their forehand. So basically I'm going to try and hit towards their leg. So left leg for me, or if it's a right-handed player, the right leg. I want to force that player to turn their paddle like this, and I'm looking for an error. The other thing I'll do is if I have an attackable ball, I'm generally going to attack on the backhand side, around the hip or higher. And what I'm looking for there is I'm looking for them to come across, and if they don't bend their paddle over like this, I end up with a pop-up, and then I can put it away.
We'll look at a couple points from our friend Eddie from the Eddie and Webby Show. You're going to see here on the dink how he has to bend his wrist to be able to get that paddle sort of up into the dink, and then has to push it forward. On the backhand side, you're going to see how open the paddle is when he's dinking, so that paddle is really open as he's dinking. When he gets attacked, you can see how that ball basically flies off the paddle up. At that point, they actually won because the ball landed in. They had to go back and get it, and they won that point. But same thing here. What you're going to see an attack shot, and what happens is because of the way the paddle's angled, Eddie doesn't have a choice here except for the ball to go up. So it's really difficult to defend off of that kind of paddle angle.
To be clear, there are players who use the Western and semi-Western grips successfully, and some of them are very good players with excellent results in tournaments and otherwise. So obviously, those players are able to play with that grip. They're going to stick with that grip, and they're going to be perfectly fine. The continental grip, though, for other players, in other words, if you're not a player that already has a Western or semi-Western grip and have already kind of advanced in the sport, and so you're looking to either get in the sport, or you're new to the sport, or you want to be able to grow in the sport, the continental grip will simply be a better grip. It's more versatile and will also allow you to grow in the sport more easily than trying to grow with a Western or a semi-Western grip. So hopefully it helps you understand that the semi-Western grip or the full Western grip, which I've called a whack-a-mole before because it looks like you're whacking a mole on that video game, on the arcade game, that this kind of grip can really cause difficulties on low shots on your forehand and high shots on your backhand. High shots on your forehand usually are okay with this grip because of the paddle angle. Low shots on your backhand are usually okay with this grip because of the paddle angle. But once I get up into this zone, that's trouble. Or once I have to go down to this zone, that's trouble because I have to start bending my wrist and my elbow to compensate for the paddle angle. I'll link below to some videos and other materials that we've done on the grip. We think it's a super important topic. Obviously, you know, it's the link between our bodies and ultimately the ball, because the paddle's what hits the ball, right? So it's a really important linkage that we need to understand, and we need to make sure we have, you know, we're doing properly. So we have some other materials. We've also prepared a grip chart that basically will show you, if you look at the paddle like this from the end, so they're numbered, and it'll show you where, you know, each part of your hand should go, so you can get a Continental grip. We also show you what the other grips look like, but the key there is how to hold the paddle with a Continental grip. Unless you're already well down the path of using the Western or semi-Western grip and have had good results using that grip, we recommend using the Continental grip. Good luck out there.